Joseph Smith said, and I'm paraphrasing here as always, when I come out here without my notes, he said that the main points of the gospel were that, and I'm probably going to add a little bit to the front of it, Jesus was born miraculously, that he lived, he gave us his teachings, but that Jesus was crucified, was put in the tomb, and rose on the third day, and that everything else is an appendage to it. Now, I'm thinking about that word appendage here, and I'm thinking about myself as a guitarist here, and we call these appendages, and these matter. When I first got home from my mission, I was told, hey, we can help you get a job as a carpenter. Well, where I'd served in Buenos Aires, I had met enough carpenters that were missing digits that I was like, nah, I like playing guitar too much. And so I turned down that job as a carpenter because my appendages matter to me too much. So again, the main points of our religion are I guess the most important point of faith, I think, is why he would have said this, is that Jesus was crucified, was buried in the tomb, and then rose again on the third day. That couldn't have happened from anybody else except for God. Now, coming back to an appendage now, that I think is a very important one, that went for a significant period of time without hardly being talked about, is the Constitution now, as Elder Bednar says, and we will prove them herewith. Sometimes we're getting tested. Sometimes they stop talking about something. They haven't changed their mind. There's a lot of other appendages besides our faith in the fact of Jesus' Godhood. Because there's everything else he's called us to do and to become. And every time, not every time, but it seems like a huge percentage of the time that you hear it talk about the Constitution, it always goes back to talking about the premortal existence and the war in heaven. And that Jesus was the one who stood up for Heavenly Father's plan of agency for us. And so it's kind of a huge deal in this life. It's a huge deal in particular to Jesus, who apparently we stood by his side in the premortal existence. And there's another big deal, I think, too, that you have to look at, is that the way the Constitution is written out is the first written Constitution. I'm thinking of Dave Ramsey. I was listening to him once. And there's a pair of brothers that have a business together. This guy calls in and he says, I've been doing business with my brother, or his brother-in-law, or something like that, and he hasn't been doing this, and I don't know why he's not doing that. And Dave Ramsey says to him, well, did you guys put it in writing that that's something he should be doing? And the guy said, no, I just figured it's common sense. And Dave Ramsey, classic Dave Ramsey style, says, well, you're the idiot for not putting it in writing. You didn't communicate it. There's no communication going on. He doesn't necessarily know that that's even what you expect of him. Okay? But the Constitution tells us. It tells us that the powers are few and enumerated, and the rest are reserved to the states or the people. It tells us straightforward. It tells us in particular, as a matter of fact, that just because we've granted certain powers to the federal government and the states doesn't mean we haven't reserved the majority of it to ourselves. The family is supposed to be promoted as a fundamental unit of society, and I would say that's the very essence of the Ninth Amendment, is the family is the fundamental unit of society. That's the big deal. And to top it off, if people are constantly exercising authority over each other, do they really have a heart at peace with that person? Or do they see that other person as somebody else for them to control? Because every law that's passed has an enforcement mechanism. Therefore, law is force. And you cannot have a heart at peace if you're always forcing somebody for things that have nothing to do with violations of the laws of nature and of nature's God. Sure, there are certain things that should create some uniformity in how society operates to prevent other violations of the laws of nature and nature's gods. For example, reckless car accidents constantly happening. That's a pretty bad violation of the laws of nature and of nature's God. We're not supposed to be. So some order is good. However, there are several other things that go far beyond acceptable for any level of government force. Because remember, in the end, when a person refuses to obey, there's a real high possibility that sooner or later law enforcement is going to come out and make them obey anyhow. And when they resist that obedience, that law enforcement has guns with them. Okay? So, that's not good. People need to have a heart at peace with each other. People need to have limited things that they've agreed to. Write it down and say, we agree, hey, you're going to be in charge of this, we're going to be in charge of that. Uh, there's certain things that you have optional available to you. There's certain things you're prohibited, don't do them at all. There's certain things that you're promising, that you're guaranteeing to us that you're going to do. That's what the Constitution does. And then it gives it an orderly manner to make sure that it's officially carried out, which is very similar to being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The priesthood order is always carried out in a very orderly way, where the ordinances are verifiable by witnesses that they were properly done. So that appendage of the Constitution that maybe we don't talk about as much, it's an appendage to the gospel, but it's consistently framed around that it goes back to the premortal existence, that this is something Jesus fought for. Appendages are important. So now let's talk about, real quick here, I thought about looking up the ER order of priorities regarding appendages. Emergency room doctors, right? They've got their A, B, C, D, E, Fs, right? Airway, breathing, cardio, something like that is what it is. Anyhow, they check all those things. And then they start working on the appendage. Unless the appendage is losing blood quickly. If it's losing blood quickly, then they skip all that other stuff, go straight to dealing with the appendage. Okay? So the main person is this. We don't want to lose this. We prefer to save the person, though, no matter what. However, if this is so bad that it's bleeding, right, then it has to be dealt with first, right? And that's the issue with the Constitution. President Benson wasn't some extremist. He wasn't talking politics. He was talking about the limited parameters of what politics were allowed to even discuss, because the agreement was made. It's not like the pair of brothers who join a business together and aren't communicating, and they're just doing it based off of precedent and supposed common sense or common law. No, it was written down. This is amazing. This is so neat. And it was given ordinances, order, Article 1, Section 7, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2, Article 5, Article 7, all that kind of stuff, right? Who's allowed to do what? We don't have bishops going around teaching missionary discussions in the church. We don't have young women going and running sacrament meetings. Everything's done in order. And the wording of the handbook is what the handbook says. The wording of Doctrine and Covenants regarding how the church is supposed to operate is what it is. Nobody tries to operate outside those parameters. And this appendage of the Constitution is a huge one. Don't forget that missionaries have been sent home when freedom has been lost in other countries. But what's even more important about the United States Constitution, we've been told that Jesus himself, he took credit for establishing it through the hands of wise men who he raised up for the purpose, and he's called us to maintain it. He's consistently referred to the elders as being the ones who would step up to the plate to save it. So this is an appendage to the gospel, but it's so closely related to Jesus and the plan of salvation, which is the main part of the gospel, and his Godhead. And the premortal, once again, the premortal is just the reality that he really is God, that we've existed before. It is super connected to that. So I think this appendage is a massively important appendage. Consider it like an entire arm or an entire leg. Don't consider it like a pinky finger. And if you're a guitarist like me, you don't even want to lose a pinky finger anyhow. No picking on people who've lost appendages. I've lived with them. My best friend's mom, all that kind of stuff. And she was awesome at getting around with what she had, having only one arm. And but still, I helped her here and there with different things. So anyhow, hold on to this appendage. Appendages are important. They're built on solid eternal principles. Just the most important principle is Jesus is God. I think that's why Joseph Smith said that quote. But I don't know. You tell me. Again, please like and subscribe. I know I haven't been saying that a whole lot, but I am committed to trying to do my part as best as I understood it based on the talks I've studied a lot throughout the years. I think we're supposed to talk about this and share it. And let's look at everything that's discussed politics-wise through the lens of, is it constitutional or not? Is it consistent with the laws of nature and nature's God, or God's eternal plan for us? And then let's act appropriately. When we see something's unconstitutional, let's call it out with our friends and also letters or what have you to our representatives. All right, thanks you guys.